Practice our opening!
You might look at Metaphor ReFantazio and be tempted to boil it down to fantasy Persona, but it actually deviates in some really interesting ways from both Persona and Shin Megami Tensei. After dozens of hours with Atlus's new game, we have some things to share that we wish we knew before starting. A quick note, we're going to be as spoiler-free as we can in this video, but by necessity to show you the breadth of what Metaphor has to offer, some later game party members will be shown that have already been featured in promotional material. So we'll put a spoiler warning here just out of an abundance of caution. You've been warned.
I see the enemy.
Come on!
We're down! Now's our chance!
If you're looking for a royal virtue to raise first after being given free reign in Grand Trad, you can get Wisdom to level 2 by the second morning of free time by simply visiting Sunlumeo Street. On your first day, accept the quest in the square to help Fabienne with her cooking, and then spend time on the bench near the shore to gain a few pips of wisdom. At night, help Fabienne, which will also raise your tolerance as a bonus, and you can turn in the quest first thing in the morning. Between the bench and the quest reward, you'll reach Wisdom level 2 and unlock 2 different things, weapon and armor purification from the church, and a quest from Brigitte, the Igniter shopkeeper. Which leads to our next tip. Completing the Bullish Embargo quest from Brigitte will establish your relationship with her and grant you access to the Merchant archetype. When equipped to your protagonist, you get a special hero passive called Alchemy that gives you extra money by defeating or stunning enemies in the overworld. This is a great early way to farm cash anytime you're in a dungeon or visiting the Tradia Desert, as you can just scan with Gallica to look around for the weak enemies, and then slap them around for pocket change. If you're in the desert, which you unlock after completing the Necromancer Takedown main story quest, just look out for the high-level Kokosados. That dude'll mess you up. Making a loop around the desert and hitting sandworms, and especially the packs of dogs along the way before exiting the area and re-entering, will net you around 10,000 Reeve a minute on a good run. And if you need some extra cash, the more you rank up Brigitte's relationship levels, the better exchange rate you'll get when trading mag for money. MP will often be your limiting factor to how long you can stay in a dungeon. Another fantastic hero passive will let you prolong this, as equipping archetypes from the mage tree on your protagonist gives you a skill called Magic Recovery. This passive refills your MP every time you defeat or stun an enemy in overworld combat. So much like the money-making scheme we mentioned earlier, running around and hitting enemies can refill all your MP if you're patient enough. Make sure to lock onto overworld enemies, as defeating one will have you automatically lock onto another, and then dash to attack them. Much easier than just swinging randomly.
Time for some close forward!
The characters tell you to try and sneak past him, but it's worth it to fight the dragon in the Nord Mines. He's guarding a very strong sword for warrior archetypes that can be purified at the church later to deal fire damage with every attack. To defeat the dragon, exploit his ice weakness by changing the protagonist to a mage archetype and getting it to rank 2 so he can cast Blizz, and buy ice chunks from the vendor. Your default archetype is Seeker, which is weak to fire, so you don't want to take that into the battle to face him.
I've been waiting.
More, Metaphor's Yassified Igor will give you requests to level particular archetypes. Make sure you complete these until you get him to relationship level 2, as that gives you the ability to access the archetype tree from the main menu, rather than having to return to Academia by finding one of his phantoms or a save point. Rank 4 is also fantastic as it allows you to preview all the abilities you'll learn from other follower relationships as well, allowing you to plan how you want to spend your days ahead of time. Metaphor has a row system, not unlike classic Final Fantasies. Keeping allies in the front row will raise their melee damage but lower the defense, and vice versa for the back row. As you progress, certain abilities can only be used from either the front or back row, and archetypes such as Commander and General can even move party members between rows to give certain buffs. Always try to keep in mind before you attack, use an ability, item, or guard that your row matters, as it can make or break a turn against tough enemies. It only gets more complicated as you go, so get a handle on it early. Enemies get the same benefit of extra turns by hitting weaknesses that you do. If you have an ally weak to a certain element or kind of physical attack, you need to make use of tanking skills such as the Knight's Proclamation, which taunts enemies to attacking your tanky characters. It may seem like a waste of a turn to not always hit weaknesses and focus on defense, but this isn't Persona, and there are no all-out attacks for downing all enemies, so you're better off playing the long game sometimes and not losing out on turns by getting knocked out. If you're in a dungeon and you spot a blocked off area on the map, look for a crawl space or ladder in an adjacent room. If you're lucky, it'll be a hidden path. When looking at the map, you'll often see these areas butt up very close together, and you'll come to recognize these as secret entrances. It's expensive, but buy the Phantasmal Doll accessory. You can buy it at night from Gloam Hall and Grand Trad for 49,000 Reeve. Once equipped, it allows that character to perform 2 consecutive actions in combat. This doesn't increase your turn amount, as that character will just take 2 turns, but it allows for special sequences of attacks you couldn't do otherwise, and becomes very useful when you need to attack bosses with very specific plans. But there might be an ideal time to buy this accessory. If you plan on making a purchase, wait until Idol's Day, as shops have big sales, and you can get weapons, items, and armor for cheaper. Unless you really need something quickly, you really shouldn't be buying anything on other days, since you can mostly control when you enter dungeons. Idol's Day is weekly, but keep an eye on the calendar for other special discount days as well. You should periodically check the pantry on the Gauntlet Runner to get free cooking ingredients, but don't waste time cooking until you get Maria's relationship level up to rank 4. Once you reach this point, you can cook without spending your day to do so. If a status ailment lingers after battle, you can just run around the dungeon for a minute or 2 and it'll go away on its own. A higher luck stat will also make status ailments go away more quickly.
I am cleansed of poison. What a relief.
Always buy all the tips from the informants, and check the weather forecast from the fortune tellers before traveling. Knowing what monster weaknesses you'll face on particular quests or in dungeons drastically increases your chance of success, and not entering a dungeon while the weather is bad will minimize how many resources you'll burn through staying alive. The bad weather removes the bonus turns you get from hitting weaknesses, making things much more difficult. Also, when checking info from informants, make special note of archetypes you should not have equipped, as that can set certain enemies off and make them much more powerful. Mimic chests are outlined in red if you use Gallica's Pulse in a dungeon. Regular chests have a white outline.
I bet there's treasure around here.
If you want to fight them, make sure to have light spells equipped and gold attack from the merchant archetype. Throwing money at them makes them lose a turn.
Is everyone alright?
They may not be as sexy as active skills, but your passives can be majorly important, such as the aforementioned Alchemy from the merchant class. They really begin to sing when you use high-level passives across different archetypes. For instance, Martial Lore from the Swordmaster archetype gives you a 50% bonus to all basic attacks, and that can be carried into other archetypes, making that character so much stronger all around. Inherited passives do tend to cost much more mag than the active skills, however, but that just shows you how highly Metaphor values them. Keep an eye on which passives you'll learn on what rank on the archetype screen, so you can plan around switching to your next one. And one more note. Some of these passives are specific to your main character, and they're marked with Hero Passive. They often benefit the whole party, but other party members can't learn them, and unlike other passives, you can't inherit them across classes. So you can only use the Hero Passive for the archetype you have equipped. As you get further into Metaphor, synthesis skills become incredibly powerful, and should be one of the primary considerations for party composition. While they can be costly as they take MP from multiple characters, and 2 turns, they can single-handedly turn the tide of a battle or even flat out end it. What do you mean high chance of one-hit killing all enemies? There were certain boss fights we absolutely tore through using nothing but synthesis skills. Always keep them in mind. And finally, don't neglect the battle redo feature. Sometimes you just have to throw a bunch of spells at an enemy to find their weakness, and rather than eat all that wasted MP, use your first attempt to gather information on strengths and weaknesses, and when you restart the battle, you'll get all your HP, MP, and items back. And the enemy status screen will still be filled out, so you can go for weaknesses from the get-go.
Let's blow them away!
And there you have it. We hope this helped you get a jumpstart on Atlus's new gargantuan RPG. For everything else Metaphor, make sure to check out our walkthrough and guide on IGN.com, and for everything else gaming, keep it right here on IGN.
Alright, how's that? Charging in!